My wife cheated on me with her boss, then stole $200, $0 from our joint account to fund their affair. Now she's claiming we're committing fraud in a bitter divorce battle over $1.2 million in property rights. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story like this, but life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect it. The craziest part. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, then escalated into a full-blown nightmare in less than 2 months. My name's Mike and I was married to Lisa for about 8 years. We had a decent life, nothing extravagant but stable. We both worked hard, saved up, and bought a house in a quiet suburb. I thought we were solid. But I guess I was wrong. The signs started small, little things that I brushed off at first. Lisa's phone kept ringing at odd hours. She'd get defensive when I asked who it was, claiming it was just a friend or her boss or some client. She'd change the subject fast like she was hiding something. Then came the trips. She'd say she was working late or going to a conference, but I'd find little inconsistencies. Her hotel receipts, for example, didn't match the stories she told. She'd be out of town for a night, then suddenly be back early the next morning, looking more exhausted than usual. I caught her lying about small things, like where she was, who she was with, so I started paying more attention. One night I decided to check her phone after she fell asleep. I knew it was intrusive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. And what I found, a string of messages between her and her boss, David. They weren't just friendly texts, they were flirty, suggestive, full of innuendos. She was calling him babe, for crying out loud. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. And worse, I later found out they'd been doing it for months. What made it worse? The money. I discovered that Lisa had secretly transferred over $200, $0 out of our joint account into some account she opened in her name alone. She said it was for a business investment, but I knew better. I saw the charges: fancy hotels, expensive dinners, gifts for David. She was funding her affair with our savings. That's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating. It was about betrayal on a massive scale. When I confronted her, she acted like I was crazy. She told me I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that I was just jealous and insecure. She said she loved me, that she was just stressed at work, and that David was just a business associate. But I knew the truth. Her tone, her evasiveness, it all added up. I could see the guilt in her eyes, even as she pretended to be the victim. That night I felt like my world was crashing down. How could someone I loved and trusted do this to me? How could she lie so effortlessly? And that money, our future, our security, she'd just thrown it away on some affair. It wasn't just infidelity, it was theft, manipulation, and outright betrayal. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of loss all at once. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to figure out what to do next. After I found out about the affair and the money, everything changed overnight. The house, the life I thought I knew, everything felt like it was crumbling in my hands. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. The betrayal hit me like a truck, and I kept replaying everything she said and did, trying to find some reason, some explanation that would make sense. But deep down, I knew there was no excuse for what she'd done. The first thing I did was dig into her phone and bank accounts. I wanted proof, more than just the texts and receipts I'd already seen. I needed to understand the full scope of her deception. I pulled her phone records, and sure enough, there were calls and messages with David from months back. The texts were explicit sometimes, other times just playful, but always suggestive. It was clear she'd been hiding this for a long time. Then I looked into the money. The $200, $0 she transferred out of our joint account. I traced it. It went into a new account she'd set up under her name alone, a secret account she kept hidden from me. I found out she'd been funneling money into it for months, probably to keep David afloat or maybe just to fund her lifestyle with him. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. This wasn't just infidelity, it was theft, manipulation, and outright betrayal. I was furious, but I knew I had to keep my head. I couldn't just blow up everything without a plan. So I started making copies of everything, screenshots of messages, bank statements, receipts. I wanted black and white evidence for when I confronted her, proof she couldn't deny. That night I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at all the evidence spread out on my laptop. I felt sick. My stomach was clenched tight and every muscle in my body was tense. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. The next day, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to confront her face to face. I scheduled a serious talk for that evening. I wanted her to see I wasn't going to be played anymore. I told her I knew everything about her affair, the money, the lies, her reaction. She looked surprised, then angry. She denied everything at first, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, saying I was just jealous because she was successful and she deserved more than a boring marriage. She said she loved me, but her words felt hollow, like she was just trying to spin her way out of it. When I pressed her further, her tone changed. She started yelling, calling me controlling, insecure, and accusing me of not trusting her. She said I was the one who was cheating by snooping through her things. That was the moment I realized she was a master manipulator. She had lied so much, she believed her own bullshit. I could see her trying to turn it around, make me the bad guy, but I wasn't buying it anymore. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and resolve. I knew I couldn't stay married to someone who would do this, who would lie, cheat, and steal from me without remorse. But I also felt a deep sadness. I loved her once and now I was losing everything. My trust, my security, my marriage. It was a shock and, honestly, I was lost. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not anymore. The confrontation didn't end that night, not really. After she threw all her accusations at me, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. I told her I needed some time to think, but inside I already knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this lie, and I certainly wasn't going to let her continue to manipulate me. Over the next few days, I started gathering more evidence. Bank statements, emails, even hidden camera footage I set up just in case. I wanted to be certain about everything before making any moves. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, throwing tantrums, crying, trying to guilt-trip me into forgiving her. She kept insisting she loved me, that she was just overwhelmed with work, that David was just a mistake she'd made. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything. But I saw through her lies. I knew her game now and I wasn't falling for it. One afternoon, I found myself in the garage, going through some old files when I uncovered more proof. She transferred even more money, another $50, $0, right before I started questioning her. It was obvious she was trying to cover her tracks, but she'd left a trail. I was furious. How could she be so reckless, so selfish? I realized that this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about her greed and her complete disregard for our life together. By then, I decided I had to act. I contacted a lawyer, a guy I found through a friend who specialized in divorce and financial fraud. I knew I needed legal advice. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a battle over millions in assets and her betrayal. The lawyer told me to prepare for a long fight, especially if she was claiming we were committing fraud. That phrase kept echoing in my head. She was trying to spin this as my fault, like I was the one doing something wrong. That night, I sat down with her again. I laid out everything I had found, all the evidence. I told her I was done playing her game. I told her I was going to take everything, our house, the money, her assets, and I was going to hold her accountable. Her face twisted into a snarl. She started yelling, calling me crazy, paranoid, and jealous, but I was done listening. I'd had enough of her lies. I told her she could either come clean or face the consequences. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was in control. She said she'd fight me, that she'd make sure I paid for this. I knew she was bluffing, but I also knew she was capable of anything. She always was. For the first time, I felt a cold resolve settle in. I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing from me, with destroying what we had. I was going to fight for what was mine, and I was going to make sure she paid for her lies. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything, her betrayal, the money, the future I thought we had. I felt betrayed, angry, and broken all at once. But beneath all that, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to do what was right for me, even if it meant losing her. Because at the end of the day, trust was gone, and I couldn't rebuild what was shattered. I had to start over, even if that meant going through hell first. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I hired a forensic accountant to dig into her financials, and he confirmed what I already suspected. Lisa had been funneling money out of our account for months, hiding it in that secret account she'd set up. The more we looked, the more it became clear. She was planning something, or maybe just running away from the mess she'd created. Either way, I knew I couldn't let her keep doing this, not without consequences. Meanwhile, she was still trying to play the victim. Every time I confronted her, she'd burst into tears or throw a fit, claiming I was overreacting, that I was the one ruining everything. She insisted her affair was just a mistake, that David was just a business contact, and that she never meant for it to get this far. The lies came so easily out of her mouth, I almost believed her for a second, until I looked at the evidence again. But I wasn't about to be manipulated. I kept my distance, told her I'd be consulting a lawyer and that I was serious about protecting my rights. I also started secretly recording our conversations, not because I wanted to be vindictive, but because I knew Lisa's kind of manipulative. If I didn't have proof, she'd deny everything and spin her lies. I knew how she worked. So I set up a few hidden cameras just in case and kept a detailed journal of every encounter, every lie, every attempt she made to gaslight me. Then came the day I decided to confront her with everything. I sat her down in the living room, all the evidence spread out on the table. I told her I knew about her affair, about the stolen money, about her lies. Her face went white for a second, then she snapped. She started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of spying on her, of being paranoid. She said I was just jealous because she was successful, that I was insecure and threatened by her independence. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I was done. I told her she had two choices: come clean and face the consequences, or keep lying and see how far I was willing to go. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I'd already spoken to a lawyer and I was prepared to take her to court. I wanted my money, my property, and my dignity back. Her reaction: she scoffed, then threw a glass across the room. She screamed that I was ruining everything, that I was jealous and insecure, just like she always said. She told me I'd regret this, that I'd never see my kids again, that she'd destroy me if she had to. That's when I realized she wasn't just a cheater. She was a dangerous woman capable of anything to keep her lies afloat. I felt something change inside me. I was furious, yes, but also determined. I knew I couldn't let her win. I had to fight for what was mine: our house, our money, my reputation. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I was going to take every penny she stole from us. I saw the hatred in her eyes, but I didn't care anymore. I was done being the victim. It was time to become the one in control. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. But amidst all that, I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally knew the truth. I finally had the proof. And now I was ready to fight for my future, no matter how ugly it got. Because at the end of the day, you can't trust someone who lies, cheats, and steals from you, especially when they're supposed to be your partner. The legal battle was unlike anything I expected. Lisa, of course, denied everything, spinning her web of lies even tighter. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just jealous and paranoid, that the money was a business investment she was planning with her boss, David. She claimed I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was harassing her with all the evidence I'd gathered. But I had enough. I handed everything over to my lawyer: bank statements, emails, the recordings, everything. The lawyers told me this was going to get ugly fast. Lisa had already hired her own team of attorneys, and she was claiming I was committing fraud by uncovering her financial secrets. She even filed a counterclaim, trying to turn it around and make me out to be the bad guy. I couldn't believe her audacity. She stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars, lied about her affair, and now she was trying to spin it as if I was the one doing wrong. The court hearings were intense. Lisa showed up in her designer clothes, acting like she was the victim, crying fake tears, trying to sway the judge with her bitchy attitude. But I had the evidence, clear, undeniable proof of her affair, her theft, and her lies. Every time she tried to deny it, I'd present the screenshots, the bank records, the witness statements I had. It was brutal, but I knew I had to stand my ground. The judge didn't buy her lies. After weeks of hearings, it was clear she'd been manipulating the situation to her advantage. Her claims of fraud, her attempt to hide assets, all fell apart under the weight of the facts. I was awarded the house, the majority of the assets, and the rights to the money she'd stolen. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted her to pay for what she did. I wanted her to understand that betrayal has consequences. So I pushed for a settlement bigger than just the property. I wanted her to be held accountable for the stolen money, for the affair, for the lies. She fought me every step of the way, threatening to destroy my reputation, claiming I was the one who'd been unfaithful, trying to turn the tables. But I stayed firm. I knew the truth, and I knew I had the upper hand. In the end, I got what I wanted, a clean break, the property, and enough financial compensation to start over. But the emotional scars, they'll take longer to heal. I learned that trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the people you love most. I also learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. I don't regret exposing her because I refuse to be a victim anymore. I'm finally free from her lies, and I'm determined to rebuild my life, better, stronger, and wiser than before. Looking back, I never thought I'd end up here, standing in the ruins of what I thought was our life, questioning everything I believed about trust and love. The betrayal cut deep, more than I ever expected. Losing the woman I loved, discovering she'd been lying to me for months, stealing from us, and then trying to turn it all around, none of that was easy to swallow. But what hurt the most was realizing how blind I'd been. I had missed all the signs, ignored the small red flags, convinced that we had a good life, that she was loyal. The legal fight was draining. I spent countless sleepless nights poring over evidence, battling her manipulative lawyers, and trying to stay strong for myself. I learned that money can be a weapon, used to hide, to betray, to destroy. And I learned that people are capable of incredible lies when they think they can get away with it. Lisa wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a thief, a liar, someone who'd betrayed everything we built together. But I also learned something else: how to stand up for myself, how to fight for what's right, even when the odds seem insurmountable. I realized that trusting someone blindly is a mistake, but trusting yourself to do what's necessary to protect your future is. I found strength in my anger, in my resolve to not let her take everything from me. I fought for my dignity, my property, and my peace of mind. And in doing so, I found a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. Now I'm slowly rebuilding. I've sold the house, moved into a new place, and started therapy to deal with the emotional wreckage. It's not easy. I still wake up sometimes feeling the sting of betrayal. But I'm learning to let go of the pain, to forgive myself for missing the signs, and to focus on moving forward. The trust is gone, but I refuse to let that define me. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: be vigilant. Don't ignore the small signs. Protect yourself financially, emotionally, legally. Because if you don't, someone else might take everything you have, just like Lisa did to me. But also remember that you're stronger than you think. The betrayal hurts, but it doesn't have to break you. You can rebuild, you can heal, and you can come out of it wiser. I hope my story serves as a warning, and maybe a bit of a lesson. Trust is fragile, but your strength is. And sometimes the only way to truly be free is to confront the pain head-on, fight for your future, and never let anyone steal your peace.